Oh, comparison group. Comparison group, what are we going to do? It looks like it's up to me and you, my loyal listeners.
Pour me another round. Line 'em up and knock 'em down. 2 more, let's go.
The rest of the country is going stark raving mad. Most of the media is a farce. Our once respected and revered institutions like the Supreme Court and FBI are either there to protect our way of freedom or destroy it, depending on what week it is and how you lean politically. No such thing anymore as accepting a judgment or outcome of an investigation. No. Oh, comparison group, please tell me you got my back. Please tell me you see the lunacy all around us from every direction, every side. Please tell me in 10 years a YouTube influencer is not going to be president.
Line 'em up, line 'em up, line 'em up. Knock 'em back, knock 'em back, knock 'em back, knock 'em back. Fill 'em up, fill 'em up, fill 'em up, fill 'em up. 'Cause if she ain't ever coming back, line 'em up.
I need a drink. Welcome to the Comparison Group podcast. Today is June 24th, 2023. Is there something going on in Russia right now? At the time of this recording, I'm not too clear on it, but let's just stick with what we're here to talk about. What if you beat Trump, but what? But a lot of things. I'll explain. I'm going to ask the question, can you forgive Trump supporters? Not that they're looking for your forgiveness, but I'm going to explain. I'm going to give you examples. And I'll also explain why I'm asking you these questions, why it's so concerning to me and should be concerning to you. And trust me, you're going to be a little bit shocked at what you hear. But first, Hunter Biden, right? Hunter Biden. Come on, got to do it. For those of you who don't know, Hunter Biden, Joe Biden's miscreant son, cut a deal with the U.S. attorney investigating him for over 5 years. He pled guilty to 2 tax charges, which were misdemeanors, charges for not paying taxes or filing taxes on time, and a gun charge. They agreed to kind of make that go away. The gun charge was in relation to lying on a federal application to buy a gun by answering the question, are you currently addicted to drugs, etc. He said no, and we all know now he was addicted to drugs. So lying on a federal form to get a gun is a crime. But who's answering that question? Yes. If you're strung out on drugs and you go to buy a gun, would you tell them you're strung out on drugs? I don't think so. Question, are you buying this gun to commit a crime? No. So I don't know who would answer yes to any of those questions. So that charge was agreed to kind of be swept under the rug as long as Hunter Biden keeps his nose clean for, I think it may be a year, I think. And it makes sense because if you're not going to lock him up for that charge, for something so common, why put a felony gun charge on his record? How the heck is Hunter Biden supposed to get a job if he has a felony gun charge? So I'm fine with that. I'm fine with the tax plea. I'm fine with the gun charge agreement. I'm fine with it. My question is there anything else you have to tell us? 5 years? This was a 5-year investigation? Those findings don't take 5 years. This wasn't an investigation into the Kennedy assassination. That took 10 months, by the way. The Warren Commission took 10 months to investigate the assassination of a president. The 9/11 Commission took 20 months, less than 2 years. And you're telling me this investigation into one man, presumably Hunter Biden, took 5 years, and that's all you came up with? Now, look, listen to me now. I'm not a conspiracy theorist here. I'm not a deep stater. I'm not a guy who's going to sit here and argue with you there are 2 standards of justice in this country. We don't have to argue that. We know there are 2 standards of justice in this country. One for rich people and one for not rich people. One for privileged people, people with influence and power, and one for non-privileged people. We know that. We know there's 2 standards of justice. All I'm suggesting is in 5 years, you must have looked into a lot of things. You must have looked under a lot of rocks and uncovered a bunch of stuff. Can you tell us about it? Can you just tell us about it? Because there's a lot of information floating around out there that a lot of people don't know whether it's true or not true. Some people are just assuming it's true. Why, as I've said in the past, I think it's a huge mistake for Biden and the White House to constantly put out the answer to the questions, no comment, no comment. We love our son, no comment. I think that's a mistake. I think it's a mistake politically, but I think it's also kind of disrespectful to the country. Now, maybe under normal circumstances, you would say, well, U.S. attorneys, they really don't do that. Well, these ain't normal circumstances. And let's be honest, a lot of times with Trump, they do give you a whole lot of information. There's a whole lot of stuff that tends to leak out there when it comes to some of Trump's issues. So let's be fair. That's what I'm about here. Fair and consistent. That's all. That's the nice thing about being a comparison group. Let me just say that. I don't care either way. If Donald Trump commits a crime, indict him, put him in jail if he's guilty. If Hunter Biden commits a crime, indict him, put him in jail if he's guilty. If Joe Biden commits a crime, indict him, put him in jail if he's guilty. That's the nice thing about the comparison group. I don't care. Doesn't matter to me one way or the other. Consistency. That's what the whole phrase, no one is above the law, is supposed to mean. And so I see people on the left going through a lot of pains to tell me this was a 5-year investigation. It was done by a Trump-appointed U.S. attorney that Joe Biden kept on the job. Come on, stop it. Stop giving people credit for something they really had no choice to do. Stop lowering the bar to give people credit for something that, come on, what else was he going to do? He was going to replace the U.S. attorney investigating his son? Isn't that exactly what Republicans, pretty close, are accusing him of doing in Ukraine? So what else was he supposed to do but keep that U.S. attorney on the job? So you tell me, no political influence, long investigation, they looked at everything, and this is what they came up with. Okay, for 5 years? Just tell me. Tell me why there weren't any other charges on any of this other stuff. Tell me what else you looked at. Tell me kind of sort of what you found, and then we can move on. Let's not go, nothing to see here. Time to move on. Fair investigation. Nothing to see. Be honest. If you're on the left and you had no idea until maybe recently they were even looking at Hunter Biden for tax charges or a gun charge, for 5 years you had no idea, that never made it into your news feed, it never got talked about on your chosen sources of information, well, that alone kind of makes it seem a little unfair. The coverage has been a little bit unfair. That's all I'm saying. Aren't you at least curious? That's what I'm saying. Aren't you at least curious about all this other stuff? China, Ukraine, Burisma, bribes, payoffs, influence peddling. Aren't you curious? You don't have to be a Republican to be curious what the investigation may or may not have uncovered about that stuff. Okay, that's really all I'm saying. Let's move on. What if Trump loses, but what I say is, what if Trump loses, but the impact of a Trump loss is actually worse than the impact of a Trump win? Is that possible? Now, if you immediately said no, not possible, you got some work to do to get into the comparison group, because here in the comparison group, we believe anything is possible, no matter how unlikely. We believe it's possible one day Lindsey Graham will marry a woman, no matter how unlikely. But by always considering the possible or the unintended or unlikely outcomes, you can guard against them. Now, the immediate knee-jerk reaction might be to say, fine, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. We need to just concentrate on beating Donald Trump. But many a bad decision has been made with that way of thinking. If we go into war in Iraq, we might destabilize the region. Nah, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. So I have growing concern as the focus seems more and more on just beating Trump. There is zero focus on what happens after Trump loses again. Will he accept the loss any better in 2024 than in 2020? Will his supporters accept the loss any better? He lost in 2020. Did the country grow more united or more toxic? Did people become more unified or more divided? Has the country become stronger or weaker as a result? Do you feel safer? So why in the heck would I expect that to get better, not worse, with another Trump loss? Why would I not consider that? Why would I not be concerned about that? Take a listen to something I just heard recently on conservative media. Listen closely to the direction some people feel the country needs to go. Listen to this.
Folks, leftist propaganda, endless pronouns, critical race theory, sexually explicit books accessible to minors and more. No. Our public education system is a disaster. It's so bad, colleges have been dumbing down their courses for years to accommodate the average incoming freshman who can barely read and write at a 7th grade level. It's embarrassing. That's why I want to talk to you about my friends, and I mean my friends, at Freedom Project Academy. They have perfected online learning.
He's doing an ad telling his listeners, his millions of listeners, by the way, we need our own education. We need the ability to teach our kids what we want to teach our kids to know what we want our kids to know. Let me be clear. I don't know this company. I'm not saying anything negative against this company. I don't know the company that he's advertising. I'm not saying anything negative against them. What I'm saying is that seems a little bit weird to me, a little dangerous to me, to say we don't want our kids knowing any of this leftist stuff. We need to start educating ourselves. We need to get away from this whole public education, these colleges and universities that push their leftist agenda, and educate our kids ourselves. And trust me, in case you don't know, this is far from the only aspect of segregation, for lack of a better word, that they believe in. They get kicked off YouTube, they start their own YouTube type channel or platform, I should say. They get kicked off Twitter, they start their own Twitter type platform. They get kicked off Facebook, they start their own Facebook-like platform. You think it stops there? Listen to this.
Are you tired of the same old liberal garbage junk coffee that tastes like crap? You want coffee designed for patriots? That's Blackout Coffee. Just smell it. Take a bag, pick up a bag, a little price, smell it. This is coffee for people with cojones and spines that like coffee that tastes like coffee, not brown water. I personally recommend Blackout Coffee because I love it. It drives liberals crazy. They're dedicated to promoting conservative principles, and they accept no compromise on taste or quality.
Coffee's too liberal? Don't drink none of that weak brown water liberal coffee? Look, let me say it again. I know nothing about this company. They might put out a great product, but that doesn't seem a little bit strange to you? And maybe I'm reading too much into this. I'm quite sure liberals push companies and products that they feel fit their values or fit what they believe in. But it seems a little bit strange and dangerous to me. Our own schools, our own education system, our own social media, our own sources of information, our own coffee. It seems a little strange and dangerous. Do you think that will get worse or better if Trump loses again? Is what I'm asking. That's the but. When I say, okay, Trump loses, but what? But we can't have two completely separate streams of consciousness in this country. It will not work. The country cannot succeed that way. Having one stream of consciousness that believes we want our own social media, we want our own information sources, we want our own schools, we want our own coffee, is no better than another stream of consciousness not having anything in their news feed that informs them about an investigation for 5 years into a president's son. It's no better. No better than having an information source that keeps wanting to tell me things are going great. Inflation is down. The Biden agenda is working. And a bag of small potato chips costs $2.50. $2.50 for a small bag of potato chips. And things are going great. I just see a news story. They don't have enough doggone people to work in air traffic control. Everywhere, every occupation is understaffed, and no one can explain why. Certain parts of this country, you can't walk down the street without a bullet darn near grazing your butt, and no one can explain why. But there are certain information sources that want to keep telling you things are going great. Things are looking up. It's no better. So, okay, Trump loses, but does this get worse or does it get better? How will it get better? None of us want it to get worse. So tell me, how does it get better if Trump loses? I don't know. You tell us, comparison group guy. There you go. That's what I'm here for. That's what I'm here for. To avoid this possible outcome, we need some healing, obviously. No, excuse me. First of all, we need some leadership. And I'm sorry, but we're just not getting any right now from anyone. All we are getting is a whole lot of the other side saying it's the other side's fault. It's the other side to blame. It's crazy to even think it, but I think the country was less divided, at least as not as toxically divided, when Obama was in office. I really think that now, because Obama seemed to understand you need to spend more time looking for the solution to the problem and less time looking for someone to blame for the problem. So it starts with leadership, which we ain't got. Next, we need some healing and we need some forgiveness. Now, I've heard a million people on both sides say, I will never forgive. I will never forgive Trump and his supporters for what they've done to this country. I will never forgive Obama for what him and his supporters have done to this country. Never. You see that a lot on social media. People want to make sure you know just how outraged they are in case you didn't know. I'll never forgive these Trump supporters. Bill Barr was a Trump supporter. Chris Christie was a Trump supporter. Heck, at one time, I think Liz Cheney was a Trump supporter. In some form or fashion, I'm sensing some forgiveness for these people because they're speaking out in a big way against Trump. So there does seem to be a little room for some type of forgiveness, which can lead to healing and avoid a possible disastrous future for our country. But let me just find out if there is potential for healing in another way. Not necessarily forgiveness, if that's too much to ask, but an understanding that leads to more civility. An understanding that says, okay, hey, listen, maybe I voted for Trump, even though I agree with every negative thing you say about him. I agree with everything you say about Trump, but I voted for him because I cannot put a Democrat in office because of abortion. No matter how strongly you may feel on that issue, there are people who feel just as strongly the other way. And that is their single issue. So what if I say I agree with every negative thing you say about Trump, but I can't put a Democrat in office because I don't want nobody taking my guns. And you say, for the millionth time, no one is going to take your gun. And they say, you're doggone right they ain't. What if I say I voted for Trump, I agree with every negative thing you say about Trump, but as far as I'm concerned, a bad Republican is better than an average Democrat for me financially. I'm a one-issue voter, and my one issue is my bank account. You may call me selfish, but are you going to pay my bills? What if I say I agree with you on everything about Trump, but I'm a Republican inside and out, just like you consider yourself a Democrat inside and out, and neither one of us is going to change? So maybe you can't forgive those things, but maybe in some way you can understand those things and accept those things. And if you say, no way, I can't do it. Well, again, you got some work to do to get in the comparison group, because in the comparison group, we understand we used to. All of those reasons I gave you are the exact same reasons why people voted for Republicans and people voted for Democrats before Trump. All of those issues have not changed. It's the same reason why people said, I'm going to go vote Republican or I'm going to go vote Democrat. And we understood. We may not have agreed, but we at least had some sort of understanding that there were going to be people who were going to vote for Republicans. And they had their reasons, and we accepted it, even if we didn't like it or didn't agree with it. But there has been one major change, and Trump supporters have to realize we only get to this better understanding. We only get to this healing if we can come to some sort of an acknowledgement that the violence, the threats of violence have got to stop. And there is no equivalency to be found here. It is overwhelmingly one-sided. I've said it before. You want to think an election was stolen? You go right on ahead. Democrats thought Trump stole the 2016 election with the help of Russia. It's not the thought, it's the behavior. There is no excuse in this country, the greatest country on earth, for fellow Americans who counted votes, oversaw elections, worked the polls to fear for their safety or the safety of their families, of their children. because someone decided to put their name on a website and say this person stole the election, go after them. This is not going to become a country where the National Guard has to show up with guns and we got to put fencing up around the Capitol every time Congress has to hold an important vote. We don't need extra security at polling places on Election Day because Skylar and Kennedy and her progressive friends are showing up in their yoga pants intimidating people. Those progressives and the vast majority of Democrats are not the reason why we need extra security on Election Day nowadays. So simply saying, well, I don't condone that behavior, it just isn't enough anymore. I started telling my Trump supporting friends that. I say, guys, just saying I don't condone that isn't enough. It's like if you say to your 16-year-old daughter or son, I guess, listen, I don't condone you having sex. You're too young, but take these condoms because if you do, at least I want you to be responsible. There's a big time mixed message there. So the alternative, you do your best to raise your kids right, instill certain values, and cross your fingers that when the time comes, they'll make good decisions. Now, I've asked the left to be honest with themselves. People on the right, be honest with yourselves. Is that what's going on right now in right-leaning politicians, in right-leaning media? Or is it more of the mixed message of we don't condone violence, but we got to take our country back by any means necessary? Which one's going on? That's got to change. Nothing changes until that changes. The rhetoric, the tweets, the memes, that's got to change. And if you agree with me on nothing else on the right, I hope you agree with me on that. Now, let me wrap up by saying it all starts by being honest with ourselves. One of the hardest things to do. As abhorrent as I might find some of Donald Trump's behavior, if I'm honest with myself, if you gave me the power of the presidency for 4 years, there's no telling what I might do. I would order Miley Cyrus to perform at the White House at least once a month. I love that girl. She is constantly falling out of her clothes. I would arrest people on TV shows or movies that I didn't like. I would say, go arrest Aaron S. from The Bachelorette. I think he's there for the wrong reasons. I'm telling you right now, if I ever get the opportunity to interview Barack Obama on this podcast, it ain't going to happen. But if I ever do, I'm going to waste the entire time on this one question. I would say, dude, explain to me how you were president for 8 years and you didn't just take Beyonce from Jay-Z. And he would laugh and say, oh, yeah, right. And I would say, no, I'm serious. She's gorgeous. She's talented. She's a billionaire. You could have just ordered her to be with you. And he would say, no, that's not how it works. You can't order people to be with you. And I would say, come on, Obama, come on. I thought we were going to have an honest interview here. You think Hillary stayed with Bill after he cheated because she loved him? She was ordered to. And he might say, oh, well, I love my wife, Michelle. So be with both. Be in a throuple. You're the president of the United States of America. You can do whatever you want. And this would go on for like 15 minutes. And they'd say, okay, time's up, interview over. And I would say, oh, shoot, I meant to ask you about Ukraine. Bottom line, I'm shocked Trump only got impeached twice. That's pretty good if you ask me. If I was president, I would be out of control. That's called being honest with yourself. I heard a comedian make a joke about traveling to the past and trying to prove to people he was from the future and how hard it would be because he didn't know history. So like if they said to him, okay, you're from the future, who's going to be president after Harry Truman? And he would be like, good question. So I thought that was funny, but it got me thinking. We talk a big game, all of us, me included. We all talk a big game. But if we're honest with ourselves, what would you do if you could travel to the past knowing the future? Now, I'm concerned about climate change, but if I traveled to the past before they discovered oil in Saudi Arabia, I would sprint to the airport and say, I need a ticket to Saudi Arabia. And they would say, where? And I would say, the place over there near that water with all the sand. And I would get there and I would claim the land. And I would slit the throat of anyone who even tried to buy a grain of sand before I could get it. Because I'm greedy, if I'm being honest, just like everyone else. Just like everyone else. When you ask anyone these questions, if you ask them, what would you do if you could travel to the past to know the future? Everyone gives the same answer. I would start Amazon before Jeff Bezos. I would start Facebook before Mark Zuckerberg. I would start Tesla before Elon Musk. You know, all the people that a lot of folks claim to hate. They would go start those businesses before they could. And yes, we would all say the same thing, but I would do it differently. I would do it differently. I would be more generous. I would treat my workers better. I would protect the platform from misinformation. Well, sure, until you realize to have the exact same results, the billions, you have to do everything the exact same way. And so the second we realize we're not getting the benefit of knowing the future and making the billions, we would change up and we would tell ourselves, well, if I don't do it, somebody else will. If I don't do it, Zuckerberg will. So better me than him. And that's what you do. You take the good with the bad. So be honest and ask yourselves, if you could travel to the past and know the future, would you spend more time helping others or helping yourself? It also begs the question, do you think Bezos, Zuckerberg, and Musk are from the future? Ooh, that was good. This podcast is pretty good. I'm starting to realize I make a lot of good points.
Do you remember when we fell in love? I remember, don't worry. Do you remember? I remember how it all began. How could I ever forget? It's the first time. Do you remember? I can feel it. I can feel it.
If you agree, if you enjoyed it, please share. Please help me out. It's tough. This is tough. You got to stay patient, I guess. I'm working hard here. I appreciate your support. I appreciate your encouragement. I really do. You know, when I look and I see, oh, more people appear to be listening. That means more people are sharing. It really helps me, really encourages me. So thank you. Just copy and paste. Copy and paste. Copy a link to the show. Copy a link to the episode on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Pandora. Anywhere you find it. Anywhere you find it, you can share it. Please rate it. I appreciate that. Leave comments. Remember, on Spotify now, you can leave comments. Answer the poll questions. I appreciate it. I'm giving this guy a shout out. I don't usually give a shout out. This guy is Sick Kick. SICKICK. SICKICK. Find him on YouTube. He's good. He's good. Thanks for listening. I'll see you next time.
They'll never know this love and how it feels. I never thought love at first I could feel so real. They'll never know this love and how it feels. I never thought love at first I could feel so real. How it real, how it real, feel so real. How it real, how it real. How it real, and that feels so real.